Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review Roadrunner, a film about Anthony Bourdain. And I got the opportunity to screen this documentary early, which I was super excited about, because I saw this trailer and was blown away. This was a dynamic trailer setting up what was going to be a dynamic documentary about a person who is a Renaissance man, who was a Renaissance man, who had a very dynamic and intriguing and larger-than-life life before it was tragically ended by his own accord. And obviously, he's a chef. He was a chef, but he was so much more than that. And even that trailer captures it, his personality, and just his energy, and a darkness. And this is from director Neville, who directed Won't You Be My Neighbor, which is very close to being my favorite documentary ever. What he did for Fred Rogers was incredible, and continues to do that in this film. I haven't checked out his work with Song Exploder, which I intend to, but definitely this film continues that energy, that effort, the technical prowess, and how to tell a story. Now, this film goes on a little long. It's a 2-hour film. It feels like it might not be as efficiently structured as Won't You Be My Neighbor, but there's an energy about this, there's an intrigue about this, and you can't help but think Anthony Bourdain was an incredibly interesting and complex and unfortunately troubled person. And right off the bat, you have the song Roadrunner just blaring into this documentary with this energy, grabbing you, and really representing that punk rocker kind of mentality of Anthony Bourdain, because he was the bad boy of chefs, if there were to be one. And he openly talks about his cocaine and heroin addiction. This film really is able to capture his addictive personality, and whether it was Taekwondo or fighting for the Me Too movement, and all of that energy just thrusted into something, him writing his book, Kitchen Confidential. It just was able to capture that addictive and driven personality of Bourdain, and you got to see his romanticism, you got to see his edginess, just even from the trailer when he's what does this have to do with cooking? The F that I know. And just that kind of just bad boy, just there it is. I don't know. I'm just going through life. And one of the people in the documentary talking about how he was always going into the next thing. Even if he didn't have a next thing, he was always zipping, just driving forward. And you understand who this man was so incredibly from the portrait that is painted in this documentary. And you know his life. He was a chef. He was a writer. He was a martial artist. He was an advocate. He was a filmmaker. He's all of these different things. This Renaissance man. This dynamic life. And all with this darkness under it. Him joking about killing himself. Him joking about his death. And just hinting at this horrible fate that he had in front of him. You have the perspective of all these different people, former lovers and wives of his friends who had these very close, intimate relationships with him. You have his colleagues and the people that worked with him all the way up until the end. And that was one of the hardest things. But you have this amazing footage that was recorded of him in so many different time periods in his life. Him working on his book, him working in the kitchen, him dealing with, like, doing all this filming around the world, and you see this descent, you see his change in personality. You have the people describing that change and how they felt about it, how it impacted them, how it impacted Anthony Bourdain. And we experience it because it's so tangible in this film, that descent to the point where he was a different person. And there was just one moment of him talking to these like refugees who've been through so many terrible things, and he just stops them to shift around the framing of the camera and stuff like that so heartlessly. And those little things capturing where his depression, his addictive personality, that darkness, that dark cloud looming had changed him over time. And this documentary with Neville helming it really captures that descent, that tragedy, and all the way up until this just emotional send-off, and you expect it to end, and then one of his closest friends just like, this is not how he wants this to end, and then bam, this ends with a bang. This personality, this like punk rocker music just like blaring in there, deface it. Like, I won't give it away because it was a really impactful ending, but it was so Anthony Bourdain. And I feel like I could say that because through the 2 hours watching this film, I felt like I grasped him, because this film was him. So much of it was him. You have people who really knew him, and this did not pull punches. This is not a puff piece. This isn't like the nice things about Anthony Bourdain. This was him to the core, through and through. And Morgan Neville has another great documentary on his hands here, and I really hope, because like, I'm not like into like chefs and fancy restaurants and stuff like that. I knew who Anthony Bourdain was. I remember him being in an Archer episode. Honestly, that was the first time I ever heard of him. But this was such a dynamic person and figure that even if you don't know who he is, you don't know his significance, you are going to be enamored by this documentary and learning about this human being who tragically was taken way too young. But this is a must-see documentary, so go check it out. But those are my thoughts on Roadrunner, a film about Anthony Bourdain. Let me know what you think, and let's talk some movies. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland reviewer.